Hello and welcome to Happenings in the Dearborn Public Schools. I'm David Mustonen, Director of Communications for the Dearborn Public Schools. And today we got many special guests joining us. In fact, it really is raising the level of quality of this show. That's not to diss the other guests that we've had. I'm just saying that we're really bringing in the heavyweights, I think, this time. What do you think, Dr. Maleyko?
I think so, because didn't you say you were checking those ratings, and we really need to bring in
We needed some star power.
Yes,
we needed
absolutely,
some star power.
and that's what we've done here today.
So we want to welcome today joining us State Representative Abdullah Hammoud, State Representative Santana, and State Senator David Knezek, and all of them with a vested interest in our district and what goes on here in Dearborn. So thank you. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
So we're very excited to have you, and I guess what we wanted to talk a little bit about is, your role not only with the state, but how we work together in partnership. And I want to just preface that by saying that I really appreciate the work that all of you do. I know that Senator Hood isn't here right now, but going back maybe a year and a half ago, we had talked about this concept of trying to get a network together so that we can support on education issues and just have a positive dialogue. And I've got to say that since I've been superintendent, all of you have been outstanding in being accessible, being available, whether it be text, phone, and I know that you really are advocates for public education, and Dearborn Schools has benefited from, your position. So first, I just want to preface it that way. And then maybe just ask you, what are some of the things that you see right now on the horizon for education, and what are some of the important issues you see, and or things that we can do working together? Mm-hmm. And I guess we could start with Representative Hammoud and kind of go around and just open it up.
I think when he's talking about star power, I think you're talking about Representative Santana.
Okay.
Certainly not David or myself. I want to clarify that. Thank you for having us here. And to your first point about how we work together. I know Senator Knezek, Representative Santana, myself, we all have a portion of Dearborn, in Dearborn Public Schools. Yes. And so we always have conversations with one another. And we coordinate with one another. One bill's come up that will impact public school systems to put forth what's best for the students. The students first motto that Dr. Maleyko always carries around everywhere.
And we get the selfie too.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. We don't take as many selfies though.
Because that's our thing, right? That's our thing. Sorry, I got a copyright with this representative on that one.
And more than that, we do our best to coordinate with our local elected officials as well as Dr. Maleyko and yourself. Whenever we see an issue that comes up, again, that will impact the schools. Personally, I'm not an educator. It's not my specialty. It's not my background. I'm a proud product of Dearborn Public Schools. I'm going to have that experience, but I always want to lean on the experts in their respective fields. And ultimately, the individuals who are going to be impacted the most and who will be expected to roll out whatever decision is made up in Lansing. And so, I've texted Dr. Maleyko at the latest of hours, early mornings, whatever it may be, and we certainly have that relationship to do so, as well as with several of my school board members.
Well, thank you. Representative Santana, I know that you have a portion of Dearborn, but you also have, Detroit in your district, and so I appreciate you, being part of this group and really being accessible. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on that and your role with education and helping us out in pro-public education for not only Dearborn but Detroit.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for having me today. Definitely partnerships are very important to our districts as well as to our school systems and our education platform for our students. And one of the key things as a mom of 3 children who education as a whole is very important. Definitely, I have 3 children who are coming up in the educational system. And so as a mom, when I'm making decisions in Lansing, I'm definitely considering all those factors and making sure that kids have access to a quality education. And because I represent a district that is one of the largest school districts in our state, which is Detroit, and also a portion of Dearborn, as you mentioned, it's important that we find commonalities within our school districts or best practices that we can use across the state in order to make our education attainment better for our students and for the state of Michigan. We want to make sure that we're investing in our young people. And right now, the per pupil funding could be a bit more in our state. Definitely, I feel that we need to invest in our future because those students obviously are are going to be our future in the state. And if we don't invest in them now, we're going to see the results of that. And so as a legislator in this term, in this time, I want to make sure that I'm making those best decisions along with my colleagues and also partnering with you as well.
Well, thank you very much. And Senator Knezek, I know that you're, just as Representative Hammoud, graduate from Dearborn Public Schools product, and you have a background in education. Do you want to share some of that?
So, the first thing I'd say that the downfall of going last is that all the really good points have already been made. I've got a soft spot for Dearborn Public Schools for a number of reasons. My aunt taught here for 31 years. My mom is a lunch lady right now at Dearborn High. And so, like the representatives both said, they're laughing because my mom she works at Dearborn High.
I'm a tractor.
Yeah,
I'm
we
with
heard
you.
that.
I'm with you. I'm a pioneer. I'm with
I'm
you.
a tractor, I'm a hornet, and I'm a panther. So just clarifying.
See, we just say we're all Dearborn Public Schools.
There you go.
No matter
There you
what,
go.
we're
There you go.
unified.
Absolutely.
There's so much that goes on in Lansing that folks here at home sometimes aren't aware of if they don't have a legislator who's trying to build those relationships and maintain that open line of communication. The things that I like about Representative Hammoud and Representative Santana and working with both of you guys is that it's not a big deal to pick up the phone, to have a conversation, to bring that reality of Lansing to the community. And at the same time, I think it's important for all the folks who are watching here at home, the moms, the dads, the grandparents, the aunts and uncles, for them to know that they need to be a part of this conversation as well. We talk a lot in Lansing about outcome versus intent. The intent of this bill might be to improve public education. But if the outcome of a certain bill isn't doing that, we need to hear from the people who it's impacting, what I call boots on the ground. And it's the kids. And the great thing, again, about this relationship that we've built, as we saw earlier today, we've been able to interact with students. I think that those students' voices are left out of the conversation far too long. You've got politicians in Lansing who are talking about an issue that, frankly, they don't know enough about. And no one is talking to the kids who are being impacted by these decisions every day. So I think what we have going here with the Dearborn Public School system, this isn't anything that we have anywhere else in my district, I'll tell you that. And so it's a phenomenal way for, again, us to maintain those relationships and to give a voice to those kids and to those families who are affected by what we do every single day.
Well, it was actually a nice lead-in, because the question I was going to have to you all is, we just had that experience, and I would say as superintendent, that was one, and I think I said it in the meeting, my advisory council of the superintendent, it's a representative group that established a couple of years ago, but the passion and the ideas of that the students bring forward, and it really gets me to listen to the students. And we're going to do some other things even next year about surveying students, but we're going to have the students initiate that. So I guess, what was your experience when you were sitting there with them, and we had a couple of students in the advice, and they have some views, and maybe their views are a little different, and maybe their understanding is a little different. I know it was eye-opening for me the first time, just listening to them, because sometimes you get the urge that you want to talk, you want to respond, and I always got to hold. The best part for me is listening to them, but I appreciate the dialogue you had. So I don't know, any comments on that experience too with a couple of
Yeah, I mean, it was great to have them at the table and to listen to their concerns or their ideas. I think we lack, as Senator Knezek said, that perspective. He said their perspective is different, and different doesn't mean wrong. Different is oftentimes what is needed to rejuvenate public school system that needs some help right now, especially when we're talking about the funding side. But I thoroughly enjoy that. I thoroughly enjoy always talking to students for those fresh ideas that we old people often don't generate anymore. So that perspective is always appreciated. And I can tell you, the students that we did meet weren't afraid to give us their opinion.
Yeah. Well, she even said, the school's changed since you went. No,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Too long.
I'm only on my tenure. And that's what's needed. We don't want students to shy away from how they actually feel. To give it to us as real as possible is what we need to make a real difference.
Well, and again, I appreciate what you said too, Senator Knezek, about just the relationship, and you're adding Representative Santana. What are some of the, and we've got a few more minutes, I think, left in this, but what do you see as some of the education issues? What are the top, couple of issues now that you see that you're dealing with at the legislative level?
Let's start off.
So we've seen a resurgence in conversation around career technical education the last couple of years. I've always been a proponent of saying, I think college is a great thing. College was right for me, not right out of high school, but college was right for me at a certain point in my life. But for those folks who don't want to go the college route, who want to go into the skilled trades, we need to be supporting them in high school, again, them prepared for that line or that career just as much as we would any other student. And so I've really been encouraged by the fact that the legislature and the governor are talking more about how we can prepare students and how we can invest in career and technical education. And as Representative Santana pointed out, we're going to continue to have this debate over what is an appropriate level of funding for every student here in the state of Michigan. When you box students into a corner or when you try to paint them with a very broad brush, you fail to acknowledge the very unique challenges that students face across the state of Michigan. And so what I know for us is a priority is, one, making sure that we're providing a well-rounded education for every student, and then two, providing our teachers and our support staff and our administrators with the resources that they need to deliver that quality education.
Yeah, and to those points, early on this term, we also had a big, unfortunate battle to stop the repeal of our Michigan education standards. That was one of the biggest, that was one of the first bills to come forth before the committee I sat on. And we were fortunate enough to stop that bill in committee. That would have saw us, regress, with all that we've been able to do.
Yeah, thank you for that.
No, it's all of us.
All of
on
you.
that front. And then secondly, regarding to the resources, one of the top priorities for Representative Santana, myself, in the House is keeping an eye on, at-risk funding that would largely benefit Dearborn Public Schools. And so we're keeping an eye on that throughout the budget process and advocating for in the House, as well as Senator Knezek advocating for in the Senate. And hopefully that's something that'll come out in the final budget.
I know that was aligned with the adequacy report that came out last summer, and that benefits Dearborn, and it's benefiting all students in the state that are facing different challenges from all districts. So
I think the thing that was so important about that adequacy study too is that we were no longer talking in the abstract, where you'd have some politicians saying we need more and other politicians saying, well, no, we don't, we need less. Well, now we've conducted a thorough and comprehensive study. We have a report that says very clearly where Michigan is failing to invest in public education. And so now there's no more excuse as to why the folks in Lansing would not put their money where their mouth is, right? We have a very clear document that says this is what we need to be doing for at-risk students. This is what we need to be doing for immigrant and refugee students. Now we need to put our support behind those measures and make sure that we fund them properly.
And I'll segue. One of the things that the governor brought up at the State of the State was actually making sure that technology was something that's key in every student's classroom and in every home. And so one of the things that I think is very crucial with the investment piece of things is making sure that students who are at risk or don't have or below poverty also have access to technology so that they're able to coming into this new age of what we're doing here. We have a lot of technology-based things, and so students need to have access to that in order to be able to have the resources at their hands to be able to continue their education attainment.
that's a very good point. So
Well, thank you all for joining us. We really do appreciate it. And I think back to the point of communication, building relationships, critical. We've had a lot of success here in Dearborn in reaching out to our community, building relationships with our parents. This is just another aspect of that, and we can see the positive outcomes. So thank you all for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And as much as we know you're up in Lansing for all of us, we absolutely are here in Dearborn for all of you as well. So, please, we hope that you'll come back here sometime and join us and be part of the conversation again.
If I could just say, I love representing all the public schools, but to close, go Tractors.
I'll let you get away with that.
and I say, and Pioneers and Thunderbirds. So. And of course, Tractors.
Of course, yeah. His contract. You still got a contract.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
My
Thank you.
evaluation's coming up in a few weeks at the Board of
Yes.
Education. So.
Well, thank all of you, too, for taking a few moments to stop by and visit with us. Remember, happenings in the Dearborn Public Schools, we're on YouTube, we're on our cable channel, and, of course, on the superintendent's blog. Who can forget that? No one. And we will be sure that be back with a lot of other things, because it's a big district, and we always have a lot happening in the Dearborn Public Schools.